Renegade Squadron will be giving away an Avenger Titan starter pack in June. If you want to enter, all you have to do is like, subscribe, and leave a comment on this or any video we release from now until June 30th. You will get one entry for each individual video you comment on this month, and winners will be picked and announced on July 1st.
Welcome to the wonderful world of live podcasts.
There we go.
There we go. We should have sound now, right, boys?
Jesus.
Fuck. All right. Before we jump into it, I wanted to thank Aniral and Istaff for the subs. Much appreciated, you guys. And I guess we'll re-intro. You're watching the Renegade Squadron podcast with Golo in the top left, Jolly in the top right, Lt-Reyne in the bottom left, that's me, and Nohman in the bottom right. All right, guys, so I guess today we're going to be talking about the Theaters of War AMA. I wasn't involved in the Theaters of War AMA or even Theaters of War at all, so I don't know a whole lot about what's going on there, but I do have at least one person on the podcast that would know quite a bit about this. Golo, that would be you. You were involved with the actual Evocati testing, right?
I was. Can't say a whole lot, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, so it's still under NDA as far as we understand.
Yep.
So Golo can't give you guys any insider information or anything like that, but at least he's got a good perspective of things.
It's good.
Yeah.
And if anybody's actually interested in it, I would highly encourage you to go look at SC Leaks, because you can pretty much find all that information anyways.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'll be honest, just go to SC Leaks, go to the subreddit, go to the Discord server, and you can get all that information.
But we can talk about the ideas of Theaters of War and what Tracy did in the at Citizen Con and what he provided. What was the vision for Theaters of War, right? I mean, it's probably a lot of people probably listening to the podcast for the first time have heard the word TOW, have heard this, have heard that, but aren't really sure what Theaters of War is supposed to bring to the table. Might be worth spending 2 minutes on that. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think that'd be good. Who better to do that than probably Golo?
I mean, I think the big thing, at least from the AMA, is the fact that they wanted an environment that kind of brought Arena Commander and essentially Star Marine together and see how it plays out. How do all these things interact in a fashion that they can get a lot of replayability out of it, right? So if you do something in the PU, maybe got air to ground or ground to air, you might only get a few encounters, I should say. Maybe you can only do it a few times, and then by the time it's all done, it's over, right? But with Theaters of War, I think the idea is to be able to really rapidly just kind of get a lot more numbers, right? There's respawns, stuff like that. So it's very quick, right? They can get that data points very quickly. So I think that's kind of the big gist of it, is to kind of provide a way to balance, hopefully, the PU more quickly.
And I guess Golo. So just touching on that point again. So this is combined arms, right? So this is ground combat, this is air combat, and ground vehicles, I guess, for lack of a better word. The ability to be able to bring all those things together in a controlled environment and, rinse and repeat and test and iterate and do whatever is something we haven't had up till now. We've had Arena Commander, we've got Arena Commander, we've got Star Marine, but now adding that ground aspect with the vehicles is something we didn't really have up till now. And hopefully CIG takes that and just continues to iterate on that and pushes some of that feedback into that uncontrolled sort of, PU environment.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing, right? So I know Renegade Squadron has, I think we had an event with Legacy Fleet. It would have been a while back. And we did kind of a combined arms operation in the PU, and it was a lot of fun. But it was one of those things that, we blew the ballista up. We got to spend all this time resetting everything, trying to just have the same experience over and over. And it took hours to do. And I think what they want to do is be able to take something that would normally take hours and have a controlled environment and get it, the same amount of data in a fraction of the time.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, and that was kind of mentioned in the AMA as well, right? That it's already been like extremely useful for them in regards of like seeing how this stuff works and game optimization and everything like that. So that's really good. And I think one of the other things they said because of that, they're really focused on, or they're gonna try and focus on keeping it up to date with everything and not sort of just leave it in the dust like they did with Arena Commander or Star Marine, right?
I mean, that's just it too. I mean, we have the same two maps that we've had since AC's initial inception, Broken Moon and Dying Star. And I don't know about the rest of the community, but I am kind of burnt out on all of that. I've had my fair share, and I'm looking for some fresh breath into the game.
Yeah. I think everybody wants that, and like even me, I want that, and I haven't been playing nearly as long as any of you guys. So
I think the thing. Sorry, so we talk about the good things about theaters of war, right? The hope is, to me, that theaters of war doesn't turn into what Arena Commander and Star Marine has happened. I mean, there was an initial flurry when this stuff came out. And, lots of, iteration to get it to a point, and then it stopped. So my hope is that despite the fact that we get theaters of war, that CIG, Tracy's very passionate about it at the moment, they keep iterating on it. Because, I mean, one of the things that people don't understand is the PU is the shittest place to go and test, performance or test new mechanics, right? The fact that they've got this environment, and it's controlled. A lot of people, shit can Arena Commander and Star Marine and say, what the fuck do you even play the thing for? But in the end, it's where CIG does its testing because it's controlled. It's something they can repeat. And if TOE ends up going down down that road and they put the effort into it, the feedback back into the feedback loop back into the PU is going to be immense. So people need to support it. People need to understand what's going on with it and understand why it's there. It's not there as It's not there as a battle royale mode. It's there as a way of testing shit until, in a controlled environment and then porting it over to the PU at some point in the future. Sorry, it's going to get off my high horse, but I wanted to say that.
Yeah, my only concern with that now is we have Squadron 42, which is actively being developed. We have Star Marine, we have Arena Commander, we have the Persistent Universe, and now we're going to have Theaters of War. It seems like an awful lot of game modes. I mean, I hope they all get lots of love in the future, but that's an awful lot of work that's going to have to get divvied out to keep those all up to date. And quite frankly, we haven't seen much TLC come in the way of Arena Commander. I mean, again, same two maps. So a little concerned about that, but we'll see what happens.
Yep. All right, I think we lost Reyne's audio.
Yeah, Reyne, you there, buddy?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I think that like just the fact that this is going to help them so much with the PU and that kind of thing gives me faith in the project and makes me a little bit less concerned with them allocating some resources to the project, right? Like because of all the things that they've said that it's helped with already, they even have they said they've reached the highest concurrency they've already had, and that's about 5 times what they've previously tested, right? That's probably from internal testing, but that means that even with all of those people playing in that one game mode, it's not crashing or going down, and they even said that they went just continuous games like non-stop for I think 6 to 8 hours. Like, so everybody that was involved in the Evo Kata testing obviously really wanted to be there, but that also means it wasn't crap, right? Like everybody seemed to be having lots of fun. I guess Golo can probably speak to that. Like,
yeah, I mean, it was a lot. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. A lot of what Sean Tracy talked about, performance was, it just kind of depends on your own rig. But server performance was great compared to certain stuff in Star Marine, and There's a lot of good that you can clearly see coming out of it just by playing it for an hour. Like you can really see like, wow, this worked, this didn't work, yeah, it's really good experience.
Yeah, that makes me happy to hear. They also mentioned that they're going to be looking into other sort of modes. So rather than just having, the current one that I read in the Q&A anyways was there's sort of like a few stages or whatever, and there's lots of air to ground combat and things like that. But they also said they're going to do other modes in the future, and I think just one at a time, where they do more like air combat and space combat focused, but with the same sort of like, what's it called? What's the word I'm looking for, guys? Like objective based gameplay,
Yep.
right? So I think that'll be interesting to see with them updating that. They said other things like they're going to implement the tank. Once it's released into the PU, they'll probably add it right into the Theaters of War mode at the same time, which will be really cool. And I think doing things like that to test like new ships and everything and how they behave in combat, I think this might actually mean we'll see more balancing of ships in the future, rather than kind of what we have now, which is just this reactionary, like, oh, everybody's complaining, fix it, right? And so they can actually see the statistics of how those things actually work in a real environment.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things for me is the idea of promoting group play, right? So we've got a lot of groups floating around in the PU. You get 2 or 3 people jumping in, combining as a group, going in and doing some stuff. Now, I think Theaters of War is going to start to do some of that and start to sharpen some of that group play. Things like group markers, things like group tactics. We're on the ground, we're in the air, we're in a vehicle. At the moment, and what I saw at CitizenCon, there's only sort of like one game mode at the moment, and the devices or the vehicles you have are fairly limited. But being able to look at something and go, hey, we've got to take this objective, or we've got to do this, and being able to see, like in the PU at the moment, it's very difficult to see people clearly in a who's in your group. Everyone's either in your got the little weird icons which don't sort of are not easy to see, or they don't appear properly all the time. How do I pin targets? How do I do this? If they can flesh out some of that stuff to make group play more interesting and more rewarding, and the feedback is better, I think that's just going to be a benefit for everybody, right? And hopefully they get some of that stuff sorted out.
Mm-hmm. So I was actually curious about this. I'm not really sure about it at all, but the Planet V4 updates, and they said something about a physics system refractor. Do any of you guys know exactly what they're talking about there, or can speak to that?
Well, so one of the big problems with Star Citizen always, I feel like, has been kind of the physics issue. At least on the client side, there's always been that one thread that just maxed out. I know Tazius and I have done a lot of testing on that way back when, probably got almost 2 years now. But it was always kind of that single thread that has a lot of issues, and it's usually the physics thread. And hopefully, hopefully some type of refactor is going to put less stress on any of the CPU threads that's running the physics. And if the less work on that individualized physics thread should hopefully allow us to have a higher frame rate. That's pretty much the holdup. I mean, even when we took, Star Citizen offline, some of us did, just to test, years ago, it was always that physics thread that literally capped the frame rate. It wasn't GPU bound; it was heavily CPU bound.
Right. So right now, I mean, and again, I think we've sort of done the toe component of this, and we're moving on now to sort of the planet tech and the physics refactors. But there's a couple of really exciting things that I see, right? I mean, the fact that the planets keep getting better, and the way terrains are rendered keep getting better. Everything just looks amazing in this game, right? I mean, how much more can you sharpen this, this diamond anyways, and make it look better than what it is? And right now, I mean, when they brought out Planet V4 Tech, I think it's a combination of making it look better and being more efficient in engine. Then you flick over to the physics component as well, where you start talking about, bringing in things like, at the moment, if you're running a CPU with a high clock count, the game runs better, right? It's a CPU-bound game. The higher clock counts are, or single-threaded performances on your PC, the better the game's going to be, right? And it's going to run better. So I think there's some videos that have come out recently where people start doing comparisons between lower clock count, lower frequency machines, and then higher frequency clock counts on machines. And the higher clock counts do, up to a point, work better. Yep. So they're bringing in Vulkan, to start sort of lifting some of that load off the CPU and pushing that onto your GPU. They're talking about the physics refactor and running stuff in parallel, as opposed to having multiple threads having to wait and queue up behind stuff. So the game, they're starting to sort of tune those knobs now and make it more scalable to and eventually I think what'll happen is you start talking about more player count as a result of some of this stuff.
Yeah. Well, currently I'm just crying in my i5 9600K.
So in the PU, I know I managed to get like close to 127 FPS at one point. That was just blew my mind. Obviously, it was a fresh server, but still, to see over 120 frames, amazing.
Yeah, I imagine.
And I think at the moment, I mean, throwing more hardware at the problem is not always a good thing. The fact that the game is going to get better as as they keep optimizing. The target is 60 FPS with a mid-tier system, and if you start going up into the higher tier systems, you may be looking at that 100 FPS or 144. I mean, right now, having a 2080 Ti with a 8700K running at 5 gig, is probably awesome, but you're not getting the bang for your buck. I mean, people are talking about it buying 3080 Ti's. Are they going to get 5 frames, 10 more frames for another $1,000 worth of gear?
And that's the thing, right? They're CPU bound, and even I've got a 9900KS, and that thing is a monster. But the issue is still the server side. If it's not maximizing the frame rate, what's the point in having 140 hertz monitor? There's the Odyssey G9s that are coming out, 240 hertz. I think it's 500 or 5120 by 1440p, and you're not going to really. You'd have to drop it down significantly just to try and get enough frame rate if it's in some GPU bound areas, but most of the time you're just going to be pretty limited anyways.
Yeah.
I mean, in the end, right, throwing shit tons of money at Star Citizen to get frame rate, to me, is complete and utter bullshit. I mean, sure, if you got the money, great, you play some other games, terrific. But right now, the biggest bottleneck is the shitty coding of the game, right? It hasn't been optimized yet. So it's really super heavy, CPU heavy. GPU's probably not being utilized as much. And then the back end of the system, where essentially the tick rate on a server is 20 or 30 or 7 or 10 or some ridiculous amount.
7.
Right.
I think somebody said it was 7. I think it was Sean said it was 7 tick rate.
Right. So you got a 7. You got a 7 tick rate. You're pushing ridiculous amounts of frames on your screen, but the server's only updating 7 times a second or whatever it is, compared to your 144 times a second. There's a bit of a mismatch there, right? So, in the end, it's all well and good spending a shit ton of money, but until they fully optimize and they get to a point, I think even before they hit beta, I'd say once you hit beta, then you're sort of talking about the games at a decent level. Then you should be throwing hardware at this game.
Oh, I think a 7 tick rate is so low that on it. I mean, you can kind of point at that and go there's where half our problems lie, as far as just desync and like, oh, that should have hit or whatever, right? Like there's a lot of things that you look at when you see, oh, a 7 tick rate server, FPS combat on a 7 tick rate server. No wonder you just like you turn a corner and you die before you even realize the guy was there, right? That's also huge for the peaker's advantage and things like that. Like 7 tick rate doesn't do anyone any justice for anything ever.
Yeah, I mean, playing games where you've got a 7 tick rate. I mean, I don't know what Arena Commander's like. It's probably a little higher because of the fact that it's closer. It's a closed environment. But sitting in the PU and watching people teleporting across screens while the server catches up, or you know what it's like when and Golo was saying earlier that you get into a brand new server, all of a sudden everything feels super crispy and it's beautiful. As soon as you throw a couple of people at the server, and at the beginning, all the NPCs are moving around like they should, and people are, you go to Microtech and people are running around the exercise thing. You add people, and all of a sudden people start teleporting around the place. So, I mean, to put
I blinked that a visual. If you want to see a visual representation, look at that link.
I mean, to put any seriousness in the PU right now, and I get this is the word I like now. It's my word of the week. Flex about how much hardware you've got is really kind of funny, right? Go piss your money away in the corner and spend shit tons of money on Star Citizen hardware right now. But in 6 months' time, it's going to be completely different, right? When Vulcan comes in, if they get the tick rates up to 30, your current hardware is probably going to be okay. What are we moving on to?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to move into the FPS stuff because I think there's a few things in there that are physics based, right? So they're doing things like they said they're doing things like increasing the movement and strafe speeds, and like animation speed increases, which I think is really important. I think everybody that's played any Star Marine or anything like that knows how clunky it can feel at certain times, and that type of gameplay, the sort of stop and shoot stuff, is fine. It's done in other games plenty, and they're great games like CSGO and things like that. One of the newer ones that does that is Valorant, but it feels clunky in Star Citizen, and I think that they're working on ways to tweak that so it doesn't feel so, so immediate, I guess is the word.
I think the part that really drives me nuts about Star Citizen's FPS is essentially you can be running and it's like your character has to slow down, stop, then it can shoot. I'm just so used to, the shooters that I've played, you can, ADS and shift, and it kind of prioritizes you shooting, not stopping, not any of that, stuff. So I'm just used to more mobility in my FPS.
Yeah, for me, like I've never really seriously played Star Marine, so I don't have too much to say here. But every time I have played it, it just feels clunky, just kind of unpolished and not particularly fun. Now, granted, there's lots of people that spend all their free time playing it. Anirol, Crick, those are good guys to use here as an example. But for me personally, it's just never felt very rewarding. I don't know if anybody else agrees with that sentiment, but that's just kind of my personal opinion there.
I'm kind of the worst guy to ask about FPS. Every time I have it, someone puts a gun in my hand, I seem to throw it, or some part falls off and end up killing myself and everybody else around me. So it's, I mean, look, I've played Battlefield, I've played, PUBG, played a heap of FPS, so I'm pretty good at it. But in Star Citizen, I've stayed away from it. Beyond the fact that, players look good in this game, like they look amazing. I think they focused a shit ton. Typical Star Citizen, right? And I think this is kind of one of those, I think people will agree with me that Star Citizen has gone the route of looking good first and then sorting out how the game feels to actually play for the most part. And especially in FPS, I mean, players are super detailed, guns are super detailed, but it feels clunky to run around. I mean, I know guys can do some amazing shit in there, and like you say, Crick and Anirol are really, really good FPS players. But generally speaking, the fact that you can't even throw a grenade in this game properly, right, just does my brain in. And the fact that, like Golo is saying, it has to go through an animation sequence before you get to the next thing. It's like everything's hasn't really been thought through. They'll get there eventually, and they'll kind of lock it all down and make it feel good. But I think one of the things that Star Citizen tends to be, what's the word? I think they tried to do too much, if that's the thing. They want to be the best, they want to be a great FPS game. They want to be a great space combat game. They want to be a great vehicle game. They want to have the best planet tech. They want to be the best at everything. And at some point, you can't, right? And there needs to be focus put on that area, which I don't think it's got yet.
I know recently we did a watch together with a few RS guys. And one of the things I noticed is that, man, how far we've come.
We have, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, Gus, you go.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, yeah, go back, get on YouTube, look up the hangar module from a few years back, and compared to what we have now, I mean, it is just black and white. They're definitely making progress. It's just when it comes to, like, again, going back to Star Marine, I just wish there was more. I don't get a very good feedback where I don't know if the issues are me as a player or if it's issues with the game. So it's just hard to kind of figure out how to improve. Grenades don't work, for instance, right? Is that something I should know about? Because sometimes I think they do, and sometimes I think they don't. Your weapon doesn't fire whenever you pull it out for whatever reason. I mean, there's just lots of little inconsistencies that make it very difficult to, improve your gameplay.
And I guess let me caveat by saying that, I mean, while I'm critical of Star Citizen, I think we've all been around in the project long enough to know that if you go back and see when this thing first came out compared to where we are now, this thing's, Star Marine, and even myself, like, playing Arena Commander or playing Star Marine, like I go into Star Marine once every 6 months and take a look around. It's come leaps and bounds, but it's still not at the level of what comparing it to a, half decent FPS game that you would play on somebody else. And I think until it gets to that level, that's when people don't take it as seriously. And I don't know if they're trying to achieve, COD or PUBG or where they're heading with it, but it has definitely come leaps and bounds compared to what it used to be a year ago, 2 years ago, whatever.
Reyne, your mic.
Damn, I'm good at that. So I think there's a lot of factors that go into that, and it's not just as black and white as like, oh, we'll make a Call of Duty. So there's a couple things with Call of Duty that remain consistent all the time, right? All the physics in every Call of Duty game, pretty sure they're basically the exact same. The thing with like that's and you wonder, people are like, well, they just copy and paste the same game every single year. It's like, yeah, because like creating an entire FPS game from scratch is really difficult, right? But then you factor in things in Star Citizen, you look at things like, oh, well, the gravity on every planet's changed. So every time you go on a different moon or different planet, bullet drops got to change, right, with the physics, and the way you move has got to change. And I think like balancing in the PU at least isn't going to be as simple as just like, oh, look, we have this easy model that works for everything, right? And I don't think you're going to see perfect balance across every different planet and everything like that. I think they should probably just balance for a base level, which would probably just be like 1G, right? Whatever. And then after that, you sort of have to let the physics engine take care of everything else, because it would be so much work to go into every different variable that could apply in a space sim, right? Especially one like Star Citizen, to actually make it feel right everywhere.
Yeah, I agree.
They're looking at a few other changes for like FPS combat, or at least on foot FPS combat. I don't know if that includes EVA stuff, but weapon spread, recoil improvements. I think those are important. That kind of makes me feel like they're trying to go more of a I don't know if I'd say realistic way, but let's just say a CS:GO way where recoil actually matters, the weapon spread actually matters, and you'll have to learn that depending on what guns you're using and things like that. But I don't know for sure. But if they're working on that stuff, it sounds like that makes sense.
And I sure hope they help with some EVA stuff. I mean, it's funny, you'll be in a Star Marine, you'll run out the exit and you'll like do a 180 spin, or you'll be flying towards the entry point and you just face plant.
Oh man.
Oh gosh.
Do you remember when they came out with there was a video a few years ago that came out where they showed all the zero-G combat and the guys throwing up holograms and little shields and stuff like that.
Sadaball.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was, but there was like this whole zero-G thingy, and you had a shield, like a personal shield that could come up, and you could throw a hologram in front of you and do kind of stuff. I'm still waiting for that stuff. That was like 2-3 years ago, I think that happened. And it looked awesome. Like I was literally going, holy shit, this is amazing. It was at one of those Citizen Cons, I'm sure of it.
I think they may have borrowed too much from, I think it's Ender's Game.
Yes. Yeah. Well, they're heavily influenced by a lot of video games, or sorry, a lot of movies and video games, right?
Yeah, I mean that's you can see that in almost all their media and even some of their designs and things like that. I think that's really
Their
cool.
salvage ship.
Yeah, the Vulture and the Venture.
The Vulture.
There's a few other ships. People don't agree with me on like the what's that one ship? It looks like the Raven Navy issue in Eve.
Oh God, here we go.
Yeah, but
Corsair.
The Corsair,
yeah. Corsair, yeah.
A lot of people don't agree with me on that, but as soon as I seen that ship, I was like, "Is that an RNI?" Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's anything that you can't, link to some other. I mean, Firefly, Star Wars,
everything's
Mercury,
a remix, man.
Like
Everything.
It's literally everything's a remix. That copyright's like out the window. These artists probably worked on half these other projects in the past, and when they did the Mercury Star Runner, it was like, hey, dude, that looks like the Millennium Falcon, or the Vulture looks like they're whatever from Eve, right? Anyways, good on them.
To be clear, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's really cool that they're incorporating a lot of different like pop culture and other games. Sort of, they're taking inspiration from other games and stuff like that. There's a lot of things I love about those games they're taking inspiration from, or those movies and stuff. I think that we can all agree on, right? And it's cool it kind of brings like a familiarity to the game.
Oh yeah, I mean even the armor sets, right? Like getting back to the FPS side of things.
Oh, real Halo like.
Oh my God, yeah, like it's amazing. But I mean, and I guess like you say, it grounds you in stuff that's familiar, and it's like, hey, I can be this guy, or I can be that guy, or this gal, and that gal out of this other franchise, and yeah, makes you feel good. So yeah, awesome.
Yeah, I mean, what was it? What was I gonna say? I totally just blanked. I like started a sentence and it went away.
So we're gonna talk about weapon spread and recoil movement. I think was the topic that we're talking about. I mean, there's a new gun that they brought out. The Electron scatter gun, or the Electron freaking sniper rifle, and the hand cannon thingy. That looks pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm really excited for like non-lethals. I think that's going to bring bounty hunting to a new level. You can just incapacitate somebody rather than just killing them, and I think that's really exciting. I think we talked about
throw
that
them
last
in your
week.
hawk.
Yeah, drag them into my hawk. If they take that gameplay away from him, I'd be very sad.
So now we got space tasers, right? So we can now taser stuff and throw it in the back of the use that little cell in the back of the hawk for something.
Yeah, it's kind of like the FPS sort of version of what we talked about last week with space combat and like disabling ships rather than just blowing them up all the time.
Yeah,
and I think those are really important sort of not just gameplay loops but mechanics that will make the game feel a lot more real and exciting, right? There's like a risk versus reward, and it's like, well, this guy's probably got a lethal weapon because I'm hunting him and he knows it, and I'm trying not to kill him because I want a higher payout kind of thing, right? I think that'll be really cool. And as far as like the weapon spread and stuff goes, I don't know how you guys feel about that. Like, what do you guys think of having like recoil patterns in the game for certain guns and bullet drop and like weapon spread increasing as fire continues?
It's coming. Yeah, it's coming. Like they're going to be the best at everything. I mean, Jolly, I think you said that, and I think in time they're going to deliver. It's probably going to take many more years, but they're very ambitious, more ambitious than any other company I've seen to date in the video game industry. Like it's crazy what they've accomplished already. So yeah, it's on the way. Wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, I actually thought that it's sort of already here, right? I mean, I'm running around with some gun at the moment, and again, someone's going to tell me what it is, but this thing has like 195 bullets in it, and you know, I hold the button down, the thing starts spinning up the 10 barrels or 5 barrels, or whatever.
FR55.
Yeah, something like that. And you know, I'm constantly having to try to hold this thing straight to stop it spraying.
There we go.
F55, there you go. And trying to hold this thing straight to actually, you know, group some stuff. So, you know, they're gonna have to give you a reason to use a specific gun. And I think there's, you know, the P4 AR or whatever it is.
Yeah, P4 is kind
really
of like good.
It's supposed to be this sort of like meta gun in Star Marine, and then you've got this P55, you know, F55, which is like for me, who can't shoot for shit, but just points it until bullets run out, and you know everyone's dead on the other side, hopefully. You know, it's like it's like the spaceships. There's got to be a reason to use different weapons on spaceships and different reasons to use weapons on FPS. And I think these the electron guns, at the moment, I think the first implementation is going to be kill, but it's the precursors to, you know, stun or taser type weapons. I mean, Mad Rambo was saying, you know, space tasers, right? So to me, it's great. The idea of having you know, at least one of your ships fitted out with a non-lethal loadout to disable a ship, and then a boarding party going in there with exactly the same idea of basically you know, non-lethal rounds into a ship to capture that target. It's just a mind-blowing gameplay loop that I think hopefully comes soon.
I'm kind of excited about the electron gun because it seems like an anti-camper weapon, right? You know, if you get enough shots, you can shock around corners and stuff like that. So
the anti-camper weapon. Did you guys see that post on Reddit the other day? I think a couple of people were watching me. I was accidentally streaming it, but there's a post on Reddit the other day where this dude was kind of being hunted by this Reliant Tana in on Hurston, I believe it was. And it was a pretty long clip, but at the end of the clip, he pulls out a railgun, and this Tana is like flying towards him, and he shoots the Tana right in the cockpit with the railgun, and it blows up right in front of his face, and that was like so cool to watch.
I think I saw the video. Yeah, it looked pretty amazing.
Yeah. So we have working ground to air combat, I guess. If a man on foot with a railgun can blow up a ship.
I remember when I think it was 2 years ago when we went to Austin for CitizenCon. There was this video of this chase with a Cutlass and you know, another ship chasing it, and a guy sitting out the back of the Cutlass with the railgun, and they fire, and the rail doesn't even look like it hits anywhere near it, but the ship just explodes, and everyone's like, yeah. This is freaking the best thing ever. And now we've got like multiple missile launchers that you can like shoulder mounted missile.
The Animus was a monster when it was first introduced.
Well, that's what I want to see. I want to see like a bunch of people on a Cutlass, or not Cutlass, like a Caterpillar, right? Just have this lone Caterpillar out there, just play as bait and put the doors down on each side, and just have like a ton of people packed in there with Animus missile launchers. And just see what happens to the poor sap that comes up to try and just shoot that thing at point blank. And they've got, you know, God knows how many missiles on them.
Just hit him with a broadside. The side doors.
Yeah, they drop down and you got like 10 people with animuses.
Yeah. Speaking of really cool kills, though, in the AMA, they said, here, I'll read it the actual quote. It says, most importantly, because of our new metrics and analytics, we discovered that someone somewhere made a kill with a fire extinguisher.
Skills.
Oh, damn. Okay, hold on, guys. Sorry. Dali Alpaca, thank you for the 5 gifted subs, dude. I appreciate that a ton.
Yeah.
That's amazing, man. Thank you so much.
Wow.
Damn. Well, yeah. Well, welcome to Lt-Reyne's sub channel. Thanks, guys. Yeah. What else did you guys want to talk about? Is there anything else you guys noticed in the AMA or Golo? Is there anything maybe that you can speak on from the?
I mean, all I can say is it's a ton of fun. I think I think a lot of people are going to be really excited once they get their hands on it. I mean, there's Sean's involved, a lot of other great devs are involved, and I think they're really committed to making this a great experience for people that want to get in there, experience combined arms, and hopefully we continue to get a lot of good data and see those effects trickle into the PU. That's ultimately where we pretty much all want to be.
Yeah.
So how long do you think we've got before we? And again, this is just a general question. Evocati release of 310. Let's make a prediction. I'm thinking probably in the next week we'll start looking at an Evocati release.
It's mighty ambitious. I hope you're right, though. I'm hoping we don't have the same issues that we had with the launch of 3.9. I'm hoping kind of all that's behind us now. They're kind of settled into working from home. I hope you're right. So what
have we got? 1, 2, 3 weeks before, roughly before the end of the month.
Yep.
That 310 is supposed to be coming out. I mean, I don't know if they're going to. I don't know if it's going to hit the date, but I mean, I guess Evocati will. We'll have to have a PTU in maybe the last week of June to hit the dates, and then probably go a week over on the PTU, but potentially.
I'm gonna say the 19th, that Friday, Evocati.
Okay. And what's the feature that everyone's looking forward to? I mean, I know someone in channel just said fixed weapons. I mean, to me, that's up there with one of the things that I absolutely want. I mean, we've got a whole class of weapons at the moment that's essentially like not being used on mid-sized fighters, but fixed weapons and high-speed maneuvering.
Well, I think that's I think that's the thing, right? So if they can make fixed guns more viable, you're also going to see some flight changes as well, just because of behavior, right? So when you're using fixed weapons, you tend to slow down. You tend to be probably a little bit more tactical in your maneuvering, not necessarily as strafe spammy. So hopefully there's some benefits there. There's enough, I should say, I don't know if it's assistance or maybe they're going to nerf tracking on auto gimbal. There's enough to offset it that you're rewarded for fixed guns. I think that would go a long way.
Turret and gunnery improvements, man. That's big on my list.
Oh yeah.
I'm really excited to see them. Potentially, we'll see how it works out. Make the Hammerhead and other ships that have turrets viable.
Turrets are probably one of the things I'm most excited for, because then once turrets are in a good spot, we're gonna have a lot more like ships like the Hammerhead to fight with.
Have they confirmed that turrets are going to get like aim assist?
I think they
already
did. They did on SCL.
Did they?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean that's an easy.
I think they mentioned it a few different times. A bunch of people have bugged them. Hey, like we got to do something. I mean, turrets in real life, let's be honest, they were ineffective then. So they've got to do something artificial to make them better.
I think turrets in real life at this point are all
automated.
Probably. They're all completely automated and more accurate than any human could probably ever be, and faster to respond to anything, I think. Nohman being in the Navy could probably speak to that a little bit.
Yeah,
but...
yeah. I mean, we didn't have, turrets on a submarine, but yes, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Just look at the Sea Whiz. You're shooting mortar rounds out of the sky, shooting gun missiles and low-flying aircraft. So, yeah. You're just hoping that it's a good and rewarding experience.
Mortar round out of the sky is a lot harder to hit with than a giant ship with a railgun, I think. So,
I mean, someone else just mentioned that the M50 is getting a rework now. I know I've been watching a lot of streams lately with people doing low flying and stuff. It's kind of a popular pastime now, a non-combat related pastime, and I think the M50's was one of the first ships in the verse. It's like up there with the Hornets and the. I remember it back in the 2.0 days, the 1.0 days.
Yeah. So somebody said the M50 is crap in PvP, and Hate Fury was like challenge accepted. And me and him, and I'm trying to think, there's some other mouse guy. He was insane. I mean, like the top 10 ships were, M50s, 3 of them, 3 out of 10.
So the fact that it's getting a rework now, I mean, I think it's way, way overdue for a rework, right? I don't think it's had anything done to it in years, but that's going to make a lot of people happy. But it's even
police
though 310.
Variant?
Sorry,
are we going to get the police variant?
the M50 police variant? I don't know. I think they're just going to do some the sort of same stuff that they've done previously. Just some some aesthetic fixes and
shading, polishing,
some polishes. That's basically what it gets down to.
Dolly Alpaca, thank you again for the 5 extra gifted subs. Appreciate you. That's 10 subs,
so
guys.
NRL, what's this? All fixed weapon changes independently. Yeah, look, I think that's going to be the other thing. I think that I'm sort of looking forward to. I think, and a lot of us, have voiced our opinions on this, but the idea that pip acceleration, I think, is going to be removed or severely tuned down is going to be interesting. The fact that you won't be able to boom and zoom as much, or there'll be some sort of an impact to you doing high speed maneuvering while you're trying to fight somebody. Stay tuned, boys, but I think combat's going to get redefined in this patch. Don't hold your breath, because we've been wrong in the past, but it's possibly going to get redefined in this patch. So it's going to be interesting.
We're definitely going to see some awesome changes, I think, coming down the pipe with the rest of this year. Like for me, I care more about the flight side of things. I mean, I like gunnery changes a lot too, but to me, if you can give me good flight where I can push my ship in a manner to catch an opponent, to outposition them. To me, that's awesome, because it's just like right now, it's nose to nose. They can back strafe the entire time. They can keep you at distance. You can push hard, and they're just pounding in the face. Obviously, you can back up a little bit, let them push into, and then push back. But it's kind of a DPS race. I really want to be able to outposition somebody.
Yeah.
The biggest disappointment for me is we didn't get the shield tech in 310. That would have been the icing on the cake.
I'm with you. I'd like to see some of the older ships become viable again. I mean, the Andromeda has suffered from shield holes for quite a few patches now. The Super Hornet has been put up on the shelf. Nobody's touched it. It's just collecting dust.
Don't say Super Hornet. You're going to make people cry.
Oh, sorry. It's just the Hornet just in general. But yeah, I'm with you on that one. That is something that needs to get done sooner rather than later.
The shield bug is another one. It really hurts positional combat too, because if you try to go for a position on an opponent, it actually rears its ugly head very quickly. And what you'll notice is that your front shield will still be up, but you might lose a side shield facing on the left, or maybe a rear shield facing, and now you're getting full damage to the nose. But if you try and strafe the opposite direction and go for a DPS race with the shields to the front, you're not affected. So that shield bug is really, really hurting combat, like flight behavior.
Yeah. I mean, there's been times where there's been worse shield bugs, like shield bugs where you literally can't get through shields at all and stuff like that. But I do think it's really important they get that stuff fixed, because we can't even test certain ships and things like that because the shields don't work on them, and there's holes and like it's like, okay, so the Gladius is maneuverable. We already know that, but it's like, how good am I at getting around this target in a Vanguard, right? Which obviously it's not meant for that, but it's like, how can you know if you don't, like, if the shields are not working correctly and you can't, the positional combat doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of Vanguards.
Speaking of Vanguards.
I just linked the video in chat with our newly released video on the Vanguard. How to make your Vanguard OP.
Wait, did you? I don't see the link. Link's nowhere.
Well, don't fly the Warden. How about that?
Here, Golo, I'll give you link permission. You said.
So while we post that video, I think there was one thing that didn't get mentioned as part of 310, which I think is probably kind of good as well. And I think we're getting large hangars now, or hangars at Grim Hex, right? As part of this patch.
True. Yep, that'll be nice.
Like, you can actually park a decent sized ship in a hangar and spawn stuff, and there's a racing track. Don't forget the fact that we're going to have a racing track around Grim Hex, right? So when that M50 gets a rework, instead of low flying around planets, you can start racing around Grim Hex's racetrack. So that's going to be pretty cool.
Hell yeah! Wait, did you say Grim Hex's racetrack?
Yeah, they're going to put a racetrack around Grim Hex.
That's cool. I didn't know about that.
Let me know if you guys can see that link.
Here, send me the link in Discord. Won't even fucking work. Don't send me the link in Discord. What the hell? I'll just go link it, dude.
Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah. Oh.
Technology, man. It's too difficult.
Yeah.
So, guys, we'll get better. This is our first podcast, a live podcast. Usually we do most of our podcasts offline, but we wanted to do a live podcast and start getting the name out there. So we will get better as the podcasts go on.
Practice, guys. I'm just kidding.
And I'll get bigger. I won't be as small. I will increase in size.
Yeah,
just a little guy.
If you want to completely annihilate everyone in a Vanguard, that's your video.
Yep, pretty much. There's a reason, guys, I didn't release this during the Vanguard sale, because I don't want to fight this kind of Vanguard.
So let's maybe an interesting subject, and I don't know if we've got anything else on the docket, Reyne, that we want to talk about, but it's interesting to see how the meta's changed in the PU, from patch to patch. I mean, we've, you go back a couple of patches, it was Sabres, Gladius, kind of missiles. And we've slowly now drifted towards Vanguards, Freelancers, anything with shit tons of missiles and shit tons of HP and shield HP. You want to talk about that for a couple of minutes and give your insights into why you think that's kind of happened?
I mean, we've got ships with way too many shields. I mean, missiles, there's only, I think the IR missiles are the only ones that Chaff really works on, which is a big issue. We really should have probably seen more of a hull HP increase rather than a shield increase, because what happens is the shields are so big that essentially a player has enough time to react to it. They can just fly off and they can completely reset the fight without them really taking damage. And you'll notice that a lot of us will run ballistics in the PU a lot of times just because people run all the time. You got to be able to add some damage. Otherwise, if they're just running lasers, you'll get some damage on them and they're gone. But yeah, we've got way too much shields on our ships. And I think we're going to see this affect other types of combat as well. It's just too much. Just for perspective, guys, in prior patches from before 2.6.3, a Gladius had 3,600 shields. Now it's got 15,000 shields.
So why do you think we went down that route? Is it to give the average player, more longevity in the PU? Was it just an accident? Did we just holy shit, someone, did a number the wrong way around? What do you think it was? I mean, I got a view on it, but Golo, I'd be interested to see, and Nohman and Reyne, about what you guys think, why we went down that road.
Sorry, which road exactly?
So what I was saying is, Gola was saying, like, back in 263 whatever,
Right.
Gladius had a very low shield pool, right? It was essentially 3,600 or something. Now we're talking in the tens of thousands for a light fighter. So 15,000, 12,000 is not unusual in a Gladius. So is it because we went down? Do you think people, CIG looked at it and went, the average player lasts, 5 seconds in a fight, and let's just tweak the shields to give that 15 seconds? Or, was it just an accident? Some dude, got the spreadsheet wrong and, did a 15 instead of a 5.
Right.
What do you think?
I don't think that it was just like this. No, I mean, I wouldn't equate it to somebody in a spreadsheet accidentally put a 1 at the front of it, but I don't think that they intended to create this scenario where, and I think you guys will agree, if two pilots are pretty equally skilled, but maybe not, like Golo, when you're facing an equally skilled pilot, right, your fights still won't last that long because you're both good enough to take full advantage of every sort of scenario. But me being...
It depends. So it really depends. So it depends what kind of pilot they are. So if you got a player that is good at pushing back, the fights can be relatively quick. If you got a pilot that's really kitey, that just flies away, constantly resets the fight, it can turn into it can take 10 minutes to take them down, maybe longer. They can really draw the combat out because of SCM plus. So that's the big thing. So
from my perspective, as sort of, I mean, I wouldn't call myself a great pilot or anything, but I think I'm a little bit above average at the very least. And when I fight other people that are sort of around my skill level, what ends up happening, even if we're both trying to push in and everything, is that a lot of the times we'll end up fighting for like 5 minutes, like 10 minutes. It just lasts so long because maybe neither of us are like really good at taking full advantage of like the perfect sort of scenario where you'd normally be able to, or where you should be able to, right? And I don't know. I think you look at shields and you go, okay, well, on a light fighter, they're pretty low relative to like size 3 shields, right? Or like look at the Prowler. I think even the Prowler's only got like size 2s, and that thing's got like 10 times the HP of any light fighter.
So I know we've talked about this before. I'm fine with the total effective hit points being higher. I think that's actually good, but it should be in hull. It should be one of those things that we got to fight. A fighter comes in, we do some damage to it, it flies away. That's fine. And it probably would make SCM combat a lot better if we just were more like hull HP based, because it's like you can at least do a little bit of damage each time you have that engagement, even if they do run. Or there's a level of commitment in each engagement. And that's why it's so important to have a lower shield HP, higher hull HP, so that there's some, you're putting some skin in the game every time you fight.
Yeah.
I think personally right now they are just working on getting the foundation of the game laid. And when it comes to balance, it's not a priority. The Arrow was overperforming. They nerfed it, right? The the Prowler was overperforming. They nerfed it. I think it was just a knee-jerk reaction, which with each one of the nerfs, I don't think they were very well thought through. But once I think they kind of get more game mechanics in place and they have more components out there and they have more data, we'll see them come back and really take a fine look at the balance of the game. But right now, I just don't think it's a huge priority for them. And so, there's a problem or an issue, they just do a quick fix. People are dying too quick. Okay, let's boost shield holes. This ship's overperforming. Okay, let's take that shield generator down a size. It's quick and dirty, and not a lot of foresight goes into it.
So I think one of the things they also talked to, and I just saw a little bit of Madness mention it, is potentially subsystem targeting. Man, I really hope we get that. That's actually a big problem, I think, with fixed guns too. Is being able to see exactly kind of where you need to shoot. Obviously, lag pips kind of already do that to some extent. But, one of the things I've noticed, if you look at this Renegade Squadron, Gladius here. Right now, the lead indicator or PIP, whatever, is if a ship was at a dead stop, it's right at the center of this ship. It's not. And what happens is a lot of times, especially with the auto gimbal, is that you'll shoot at the ship and it will still hit the front of the shields. You could almost have a good angle on it. You could almost be behind them and it will still hit the shield. So having some way of system targeting, maybe a little bit further back, not necessarily the engines, but a little bit ahead of the engines, and we could potentially see a lot, better positional combat rewarded, because you're not hitting that front shield facing, even though you're behind them.
Right.
I think one of the
I think lag pips are really important there, because I remember, and I know everybody's probably fucking just sick of hearing like, oh, 263 was so great, right? I mean, everybody that's like, and I used to fly with Renegade Squadron back then too, and everybody was using lag pips when I was playing anyways. Maybe it was just like there was a couple months there where everybody was using lag pips or something, but everybody was really good, or the good pilots anyways, were really good at getting only cockpit shots, and they could blow somebody up in seconds.
Yeah, so the difference between then and now is that projectile velocities back then were around 25 to 2,700 meters a second. Now they're about 1,300. So they've shaved about almost 1,200 meters a second off the projectile velocity, and that's why we've got our lag pips down by our HUD.
Right.
Or our MFDs, I mean.
Yeah, that's really frustrating, actually. They're almost unusable because if you're using lag pips, you can't even see the ship you're shooting at half the time.
I mean, you've seen it a lot of people's, the Hornet, between one patch and another went from terrific to, hang on a minute, am I too low in the seat? What happened, right? And I think the other difference, the huge difference between some of the earlier patches, and I won't talk about 2.6, whatever, and what we have now is there's a completely different flight model in place, right? So the idea of positional combat has really changed now, right? We've now got, jousting forward and backwards. So, lead pip is the only thing that seems to work most of the time. I mean, I tried to combine lead and lag pip to get, my shot to go somewhere else. But even if we go to let's say we get fixed weapons working and we go to a, lag pip becomes viable again. My question is, how are we going to be able to subsystem target and be able to see on a ship where I need to point? That's going to be interesting. I know in Elite Dangerous, as an example, they use there's a little box that appears on a spaceship where I need to put my pip to shoot something. Like if I want to shoot an engine or I want to shoot a power plant or a weapon, I'll get something that appears on the screen that shows me that.
It should change. It just is on the engines.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if by default, like you say, if I use a lag pip, all the fire heads towards the nose of the ship, right? If I subsystem target, I'm just assuming.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
what I've got is this little MFD sitting in the corner that says engine, right? Mm-hmm. I want a visual, and this is again back to, getting combat and people close up to you. I'd like to see some sort of visual indicator to show a marker, whether it's on my big MFD screen when I'm showing my targeting of my ship, where my bullets are being predicted to hit. So if I want to shoot the shield generators or I want to shoot the quantum drive to stop them from jumping out, I want to know that I'm pointing my pip. I have to point it here with my lag pip to get that damage, and then see an indicator of that component's health going down to a point where it's blown up or not working anymore. That's going to be, to me, the pinnacle of where these guys need to get. We're a long way from that anyways, but
I think that'll... So doing things like that too, not that this is a bad thing in any way, is going to increase the skill cap, like the skill ceiling, by a significant amount. You're going to see people like Golo that are able to completely disable ships that won't even be expecting it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You fight like a Cutlass or a Vanguard. And I think probably my most favorite thing with regards to subsystem targeting is fighting a Vanguard in atmosphere and taking off each wing and then just doing the magical wave with the ship as they fall to the ground. So satisfying.
Another 5 subs from Dali Alpaca. Much appreciated, dude. Yeah, and obviously, I don't know. I'm really excited for the way the game is, or the things that they're saying, and what they want to do with the game. And I sometimes, and I'm not saying that this is true or anything, but sometimes I do wonder how far can they like actually take this stuff, right? And have a cohesive game that sort of makes sense to everybody and isn't just like, it doesn't turn everybody into either an elitist or like you just get mad because you can't play the game, right? Because like with you, like Golo and Jolly, like you guys are phenomenal pilots, right? And so when it comes down to like adding these sort of things, you guys look at that and you go, oh hell yeah, like this is gonna be great. But I think the average pilot might look at this kind of stuff and go like, holy shit, like how am I ever gonna be able to compete?
So, that's one of the things that I know a lot of people kind of roll their eyes sometimes, but I want auto gimbal to still be there, right? I want auto gimbal to be effective for the average player. I mean, I don't want to completely nerf something to the ground. I would rather CIG buff a fixed experience rather than nerf auto gimbal completely into the ground, because I know so many people enjoy that. I know I had my father over probably would have been a few months ago, and he played Star Citizen probably 2 or 3 years ago before we had auto gimbal.
Mm-hmm.
After about 5 minutes, he was done with it. He came over when we had auto gimbal, and it was like a half an hour went by, and literally my wife was essentially saying, "Hey, dinner's ready." Like half an hour, like it was a totally different experience for him. He really enjoyed himself playing, and I don't want to take that away from somebody. You know what I mean?
Right.
I would rather have my experience that's a little bit more skillful, and they can have their experience. I don't want to shit on anybody's experience.
And I guess that's one of the reasons why CIG, I mean, beyond the fact that, the game, there's some network issues and they had to introduce this feature to bridge a gap. I mean, the idea that aim assist, and, a lot of people use the word auto gimbal, it's not an automatic, hit. It's an assist. I remember, same as you, tell the same sort of story. When aim assist came out, you jump on a heap of streams and all of a sudden people are jumping into a combat scenario and feeling like they're Luke Skywalker or something, right? And they're blowing shit up and it's like, yeah, the skill. But prior to it coming out, to be consistently shooting stuff was impossible for the average pilot, which made combat like, oh my God, it's like this elitist bunch of guys. So the idea of having an aim assist to help the average player and the ability to move to a fixed weapon loadout where that should be where the progression is. If you want to be at the top of the game, you should be using fixed, right? That's the highest DPS, the most skill involved, whatever you want to do it. And, to start with, a guy in an Aurora can get in there and actually shoot some shit and blow stuff up without getting killed instantly. So I think I agree with Golo. It should, or aim assist should be there.
I agree. I enjoy the whole aim assist thing. I think for FPS combat, maybe let's not go down that road. But for flight combat, yeah, you guys are right. That's a good point. Like obviously, nobody wants everybody just to have a shitty experience in the game. We don't need to like alienate people just because you're not using $200 or $800 worth of fucking joysticks and pedals and all this stuff and you don't have 13 hours a day to practice.
Yep. I mean that's the thing, right? Oh, go ahead, Nohman.
I was just gonna say what Jolly said. I mean, it should be a logical skill progression. You get that fun, rewarding feedback from using auto gimbals. You feel like you're actually able to kill things. It's fun. It's engaging. You put the time in, and then you say, okay, I've mastered this. What's next? Okay, well now it's going to be learning how to do fixed weapon combat, and it should just be a natural progression as you get more accustomed to the game.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with the auto gimbal. It's not as, people see the auto gimbal cone and they're like, oh, easy mode. the reality is that the best pilots, like Jolly, like myself, like a lot of the top pilots, we are aiming at that pip just like we would with fixed. We are aiming just as much.
You watch anybody's stream who's any good at combat, right? And you look at that person. So you notice in the game, right? In on your pip, you've got the cross, and then you've got a small circle sitting around the cross. Most of the top pilots will spend 99.9% of their time within that cross. So they're essentially flying fixed most of the time. I've had fixed turned off, and I'm sure, Golo, you've had this experience in the past, where you've had fixed turned off by accident because you didn't flick the AG on or whatever, and you're like, you're shooting shit, and you're like, holy shit, I'm still hitting stuff, but how come I'm not hitting quite as much as I used to? Right?
So if you guys see that video of the Vanguard that Reyne posted, the first kill, I forgot to turn auto gimbal on, and I shredded a Hornet because I'm just so dialed in, because I aim like I'm fixed, just to kind of, what Jolly's saying right there.
Yeah, I mean,
gimbals make us a little lazier than what we are, and I think one of the things you've got to be aware of is the AG slew rate, and I think that's the word everyone uses, right? Between this last patch and this current patch has actually been reduced. So you have to even aim more now than you used to in the last patch. You just have to be as closer to that center pip than you have between these patches.
Yep.
I think so that's interesting too, because like I've done that myself where I forget to turn my auto gimbal on before I go into fight. And I don't know how much you guys notice it immediately, but I'll notice it immediately because I don't have like the perfect precision. That might be partially because of my joysticks, and it's really hard to do micro movements. I use T16s, and so they have sort of a resistance before you do like a movement that from center.
They've got that center descent.
Yeah, and so I do end up sort of jerking a little bit each way, and that might have something to do with it, but it's definitely immediately noticeable for me when I don't have them on. And I'd like to be able to fly better without auto gimbal, but right now it's just not even viable. So I kind of feel like, why spend a lot of time practicing? Though I know we do some events within Renegade Squadron where we fly fixed only, and sort of to make up for that, we sort of like we'll tell people to use like specific shields and stuff so that fights don't take 3 hours, but those are really fun, and I think they're really helpful. I think in
I mean the way I look at it is, think of like a gun with a red dot, right? We've got, think of we'll take a look at my Verpal Warbird here, right? That's like a gun that's dialed in. It's really, really accurate. And then you've got like a TT-16000 that's maybe not as dialed in, maybe not as accurate. And it's just like, instead of just saying, oh, we're going to give one person a 1 MOA site, we're going to give everyone a 3 MOA site. Sure, the person that might have a little bit better hardware isn't making, 100% out of it, right? They're not getting their 100% bang for buck out of it, but it allows to create a very competitive and balanced environment for such a large range of players. They're all across the globe. I'm fine giving up a little bit of accuracy if it's more of a balanced and competitive fight, in my opinion.
Right. Quick question. Everybody that's watching stream, is there buffering issues right now, or is it just on my end that I'm seeing that? Seems to be some weird things happening. Okay, as long as it's good for you guys. Auto gimbals, auto aim, bus. I don't know. Is there anything else you guys wanted to bring up? Nohman, do you have anything to add, or anything you wanted to talk about?
No, I mean, I felt like this was pretty good. I mean, we covered pretty much everything that was on my mind. Here's to hoping we have a nice, on-time launch of 3.10 without all the issues that we got with 3.9. Moving forward, see how it goes.
Golo, go ahead.
I was just going to say, does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, in the chat, do you guys have any questions? I mean, I know we sort of interacted with you guys a little bit throughout the podcast, but if you have any specific questions you want to ask any of us, let us know.
I think Arnold's question. I mean, yeah, I definitely see flight tactics changing a lot. Why? I think one of the reasons why we have people going to nose with auto gimbal, is a lot of it's because of. Let me read the question here.
Yeah, he says, do you think flight mechanics will change with turrets and more of a team-focused flight meta?
I mean, you're certainly going to see fighters not just sitting at, right on top of a bomber or another, multi-crew ship like they do now. Right now, you can just sit behind them and not worry about it.
Heavy Bob asks, why Jolly Small?
I don't eat my vegetables, apparently, so I will grow. I'll get my spinach, and I will become Popeye and get bigger. Trust me.
Admiral, and do you think the flight model will have to change if hammerheads become more viable? Or anything like that? What do you think of that, goal?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're going to see hammerhead. I mean, if they make turrets freaking amazing, I think they were saying that, 2 players were wiping out like 40 or 50 NPCs. That would be, you're going to see fighters staying away from hammerheads, and you're going to be, maybe getting an eclipse. You're going to be getting a retaliator to take it out before getting any closer to that objective.
Right.
Istaf's just asked a question. Do you see CIGs changing the strafing importance? Now, I'm assuming the strafing mechanic or something along those lines. Yes. I mean, I think this goes to ship tuning, I guess, in general. I mean, there's been some ship tuning done, and I think you can sort of tell why the Gladius is such a good ship at the moment. A lot of the focus in past sort of Evocardis and PTUs has been on tuning that particular ship. And I think a lot of the ships need some work on the tuning mechanic, like lateral strafing. To me, is one of the things that seems to be, the ability to strafe forward and backward, and the sort of lateral strafes is something that definitely needs a little bit more work. I wouldn't go crazy, but I think it definitely needs so positional combat becomes more of a thing, and the ability to not be able to just accelerate up to your full cruise speed and back again without any ramp up acceleration. I think is stuff that needs to be done. I mean, what do you think, guys?
Yeah, ramp up would help a lot. But there's another way to do it, and it's through a cooldown. You can have an AB cooldown that you can only use it so often. That also helps too, kind of stimulates it kind of a little bit to a certain effect. They can't just mash, straight spam.
Like an AV boost pull or something like that, where you can only use it, in the thick of a fight. You hit that button and it gives you like a little shot of nitrous or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does something similar, right? It just goes, and the idea is that you don't have it all the time. You do it to make quick directional or vector changes, and to get those positions. I think that would definitely help.
Yeah, good answers, guys.
I think a little bit of Madness had a good question.
How would you make components targeting interesting versus just go for engine stop all the time?
So I think it's important. Look at this Renegade Gladius right here. Oh, so if you look at this, you could almost kind of look at it from a hit chance percentage, right? So the nose of a Gladius has the highest hit chance. As you go back, the hit chance starts to decrease. Targeting the engines on a Gladius is going to pretty much cause you to miss most of your shots. It is the least effective way to take down a Gladius because the shots will trail. And that's why a lot of us have been talking about, hey, if we're going to have, reward positional combat, we almost need to be able to subsystem target a little bit above or in front of the engines, but also behind the front shield, right? We need to be able to hit that back shield, but not have our shots, trail off to, middle of space.
More of a like target this section of the ship sort of thing.
Yes. Yeah. So, right.
And I think to specifically answer this question, to talk about how do you make it more interesting, the idea that components, at the moment, we really don't have components within ships, right? I mean, this stuff that you choose in your VMAs. the ability to target a shield generator or to target an engine or to target a I don't know, a quantum drive, to me is that gameplay that's missing right now. Right now it's, what is it? Reset for nose and engines. That's it.
Yeah.
They're your choices. You got 3 choices now, right?
The Mad Rambo asked, what do you feel the game needs to bring back competitive fights? How do you think they need, like, what direction do you think they need to go, or what mechanics do you think they need to make fighting more competitive?
What do we need to make things? I mean, some people argue fights are competitive now, right? I mean, when you're, again, it depends what you're talking about. To me, there is competition in fights right now. To make fights more interesting, I guess, more ship tuning, more choices in the way of weapons, fixed versus gimbaled. The ability to, we've introduced stuff like EMPs now. Like there was some tuning done with the EMP. So now instead of an EMP destroying a ship completely or shutting a ship down, now you have to take a shield face down to make the EMP effective. I mean, missiles that actually worked would be kind of cool as well, right? And
Countermeasures that work.
That worked as
Yeah.
well. So, interesting. It's like, how many strings do you want to tug on? There's so much that could improve, and non-lethal combat as well. Right now, combat is about, killing somebody. It's a huge question. It's not just about, smacking someone down. That's my view.
Yeah, I agree with that. Heavy Bob has a question. I'm just going to answer this really quickly. When does accountability start for poor CIG decisions? I don't think that they've necessarily made anything game-breakingly poor decisions. I think there will come a point where, okay, we need things balanced, but I think right now the stage of development that the game is in, getting mad and going and keyboard warring on Spectrum all day about how this one sort of system doesn't work, I don't think is necessary. And I don't think that CIG really has the time or the resources to go in and just fine tune every little thing. So I don't think that things like that are really necessary at the moment. But if they ever did do something where it completely just destroyed the game completely, kind of backtracked on some major thing, then I think you'd see a lot of outrage from the community on that kind of thing. I don't know. Does anyone have anything to add to that?
I also think CIG is self-aware enough to where if they did do something like that, it would be addressed pretty quickly.
So let me be the bad guy for a second, right? Like, I get what you guys are saying. To me, CIG's made some pretty shitty mistakes, right? Like, we're combat pilots. We fight combat. We fly spaceships. We've been doing it since the game's come out. From a feature development perspective, I don't understand where CIG's going. This is my high horse. The strategy that there's no strategy that I was aware of that we've been made privy to. There's design documentation on a lot of stuff that CIG does. Show me the design doc around combat and where they're heading. We got to a point, we started with 0.1 or whatever it was, and we've worked our way up to some pinnacle at 2.x or whatever it may be. We went and did a redesign of the entire flight model, and we've been kind of floating around here and there, doing this, doing that, jumping backwards and forwards. So, there has been a lot of fuck ups on the CIG side, and I'm happy to say that. I think I have faith that they're going to right the ship and get it moving in the right direction. I mean, this is why we're here. This is why we play the game every day. But I want to see somebody from CIG come out and tell me where they're heading and point the ship in that direction, and off we go. I haven't seen that today.
I mean, I remember when they tested hover mode, and everybody just hated it, right? And they quickly took a round turn on that, and they removed hover mode. I think right now we're just getting constant testing and iterations. Let's try this, let's try that, just to kind of see what feels good. I'm hoping that over the course of the next year or two, we'll see the flight model continue to be polished, and it'll be something that not only competitive pilots can enjoy, but also somebody who's brand new to the game can sit down and pick up and learn fairly easily. There'll be a high ceiling, a high skill ceiling, but it'll also be approachable to where a brand new player could pick it up and enjoy it.
So there's another why the hell did you do hover mode kind of question, right? Like, I don't understand why we did hover mode. We had what do we have? We had back in the old days. Remind me, we had
landing
flight
and cruise and SCM.
SEM, and there was another like the landing mode.
Yep.
Why didn't we just bring landing mode back? Like, it worked. It did what it was supposed to do. The landing. The landing gear went down. It cut right? Precision. That's it. Precision maneuvering. The thing went down to 50 FPS, meters per second, and you would land. Right. It worked. But
yeah,
I get some dude was some guy was trying to have the cutlass nacelles rotate, and you had this kind of like hovery thing. It could have done exactly the same thing, just did the animation, but CIG didn't want to do that. They wanted to go and make some new IFCS mode. And the good news is CIG reversed the decision and, took feedback from the community. And you saw the condemnation, right? Like, these guys went absolutely, Spectrum went wild, right? It's like, oh my God, hover mode, like, I can't land anymore, this and that. And they changed their minds. And that's the thing I like about CIG is when the community really speaks out, they do listen. And that's why I think combat will get there eventually. I mean, hey, Squadron 42 is coming out. So if they don't get it dialed in by the time Squadron 42
they really got to get that dialed
out,
in.
We're all in trouble, right?
And we've like we said, if at the start, I mean, they've got theaters of war. They're looking to test things, because what might work for ship versus ship might not work at all for ship versus ground or ground versus ship. You know what I mean? So it's just like, hopefully this is their time to get it dialed in, and we might see. I think we could see a lot of great benefits. Hopefully in the next patch or 2 or 3. From a lot of the feedback they get from theaters of war.
Right.
I think it was a question that Madness asked a while back that this is about the AC question. Do you think CIG wasted an opportunity with AC, and how would you make AC better for everyone?
I want to chime in on this as a player that doesn't have as much experience as probably everyone else here. I think CIG wasted an opportunity with AC. They were, from what I've seen through my experience playing the game in the sort of 3.8 onwards, and then before, when I used to play back in like 2.6, 2.6.3 days, nothing in AC has changed. They've kept it the same things consistent through all of it. There's no map differences. I think sort of theaters of war, from my perspective, is them trying to, in a way, make up for that and make something that actually makes sense and will help them in development. But I think, AC was not necessarily a waste of time, because it's given us all like a way to go and actually fly these ships and enjoy it in an environment that's not crashing constantly. But I don't know that it actually helped them with anything, especially since they didn't bother to update it ever.
Like, I applaud you, Golo, Jolly, for spending your free time playing AC, but you give me the same 2 maps for years on end. I mean, I'm just not. It's fun for a little bit, man, but after that, after 4 years of having the same 2 maps, no thanks.
What do you guys think of that?
We know it really well. It's like we know every corner of. Well, where all the skeletons are buried in AC.
Missiles everywhere.
Missiles. I mean, look, to say that there hasn't been any development on AC is probably not entirely accurate. I mean, there's been a couple of dabbles here and there. They've done a few little things here and there, but as far as maps go, I mean, someone said, remove Broken Moon, and it's like, holy shit, yeah. I would live with one map that I could actually see. If there was a poll tomorrow, I think there would be a resounding yes. Get rid of the shitty map. I think one of the opportunities I think they missed with AC is the ability to, like, we've got a rental system in the PU, and you can rent stuff, right? Like, why not make the rental system in the PU work for the rental system in AC? So if you want to go and grind some shit in AC for 3 or 4 hours and get some rental credits in there, you could put it towards your rental credits and unify those systems. All of a sudden, you'd see a huge uptick in AC players go in there just because they want to see that as a quick 20-minute way of earning 2,000 or 3,000 rec, so they can go and buy some stuff in the PU. Sounds easy, right? Like, it's not that hard. But apparently the databases are separate now.
Yeah, and we need some more improved, party systems within Arena Commander. I think that would help. They could even use the current party system. That would help.
Be fun to be able to chat in AC and hang shit on people, right? But we used to be able to chat in AC, and for some reason they took it away. This new system where they've included where you just continuously go into games, like you finish a game, you go into the next one. I think there should be an option to opt in or opt out. That would be kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
You keep playing or you hit no, or I've got to go and reconfigure my ship would be cool. But there's so many things they could do. I mean, Star Marine's actually arguably got more love. They've added 2 or 3 new maps in the last year or two, whereas AC has got essentially nothing. No. So,
I think I don't know. I think that's pretty much it. Unless anyone in chat has any other questions that we haven't answered yet, or if you guys had any other topics or anything you just wanted to talk about, maybe get off your chest. Staff says soon they'll be releasing Mobiglass 2. When will PC2 come out? I don't know what that means. What's PC2? What do you mean by PC2, Estef? PS5 Squadron 42. Listen, I need you to leave my chat right now, Album.
I have bad news for you. I would not be surprised if it happened.
Oh, man.
I would not be surprised.
It probably will, but listen.
Hey, they're better than some people's PCs, let's be honest.
My son's Xbox is probably better than my PC, so...
Yet you still get the same 30 frames that everyone else does.
yeah, I mean, something 20 to 30, it depends,
Montreal studio opening hiring. I think that's great. Maybe I'll move to Montreal, considering I'm Canadian.
Yeah, I read about this on Reddit, actually.
Montreal studio.
They're going to be outsourcing their planet tech, their planet generation tech.
See, I don't know why they'd open it in Montreal. Like, if they wanted a French studio, they could have just went to France. What's the point in having it in Montreal?
Madness, what's the name of that company that they contracted to work with them? Do you remember?
Oh, Turbulent.
Turbulent. Going to be working with 80 new employees with a focus on planet tech from the ground up. I'm happy with that. I don't know exactly what kind of problems planet tech has. Obviously, like there's a few. For example, you can't drive a ground vehicle without flipping it. What were you gonna say, Nohman?
I was just gonna say, CIG developed the tools to make the planets. It sounds like they're gonna be outsourcing that to Turbulent, and then that'll free up some manpower within CIG to work on other things. All in all, I think it's going to be good, but time will tell.
I mean, the more people they got working on the game,
right? The better.
I can't complain about that. I think that any new hires realistically are a good use of the money that we're giving them, the hundreds of dollars. Too many cooks spoil the broth.
I had to literally do a double take on that.
Yeah, well, so I mean, you could be right, but that's why instead of having 500, instead of having like 500 people working on one thing, right? They've got 80 people working on one thing and another 80 working on a different thing and another 80 working on a different thing, right? Because yeah, you're right. If there was everybody in the entirety of CIG was working on planet tech, yeah, you probably would end up with just shitty planet tech. Bless you, Golo.
I mean, this is a topic we could talk about for ages, right? You could divide a whole podcast to, you know, how CIG is developing this game and whether we think it's amazing or not. But I mean, my job before this was, you know, program and project management for projects this size, right? So it's, you know, it's one of those things. I mean, unless we make video games, I really can't say. But in the end, it's probably something we could dedicate a whole podcast to.
Honorable asks controller agnosticism and what do you think will be the best peripherals for theaters and the game overall? I think right now the best peripheral, like I think for a pretty standard setup that everyone would agree is the best way to go would be dual joysticks and pedals.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and
All right, space math. Maybe we need to get them up.
As far as like, yeah, I don't know anything about controllers. I know that there's some pilots in the game that intentionally just do weird stuff, like using a controller and a mouse while they're flying for some weird reason, like a controller in one hand. But
I mean, in the end, it doesn't really matter, right? Whatever tickles your fancy. I mean, you're seeing guys with HOTAS, home masks, dual sticks, pedals, you name it, right? As long as you put the hours in. There used to be a guy that used to run around with a controller, right? Like, and he was awesome at the game. But and then someone asked him, "How you fly with a controller? Are you shitting me?" But I think it really doesn't matter as long as you put the hours in. And if you feel, I mean, dual sticks seem to be the meta, or you know, a meta at the moment. But yeah, I mean, to me, we've already got some sort of controller agnosticism. Is it a word? Agnosticism, in the sense that you can use a mouse, a joystick, or any combination of those, and still be sort of semi-effective in this game. All right.
Yeah, I think that's it, guys. I appreciate everybody coming out to watch the podcast live. This is our first one, so you know, thanks for bearing with us and appreciate all your questions and everything. Yeah, all the extra subs today, that's much appreciated. Love you guys for that, and I guess we'll see you guys next week. I think we're gonna do live podcasts from now on. Hey guys,
Sounds
Absolutely.
good.
Let's do it.
all right. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. Catch you later.
Take it easy, everyone.